All right, we're getting into a section of triangle congruency. Cohort C, I highly recommend that you come to class on Tuesday. I'll be absent Wednesday, so I'm sorry, Cohort B, that you have to watch this video instead, but we will go over this on Friday more in depth. So do your best with trying to figure out these puzzles today. Cohort C, I highly recommend that you come in Thursday or Friday. Learning proofs is a whole new skill. And I think that it would be extremely difficult to do completely on your own. So it's going to be vital that you attend Google Meet sessions and ask questions. So last week when we did triangle congruency, we had to prove, we made our checklist on the side, that there were three sets of sides that were congruent and three sets of corresponding angles that were congruent. And I made you go through and check off and show that each set of corresponding parts are congruent to one another. Well, this week we're going to show that that was kind of overkill, not necessary. We only need three parts, but they have to be in a certain order. So that's why I called it a puzzle. So if you have a pattern, or if you show that all three sides are congruent, that's enough to say that the two triangles are congruent. You don't also have to show that all three corresponding angles are congruent. We call this side, side, side. So if we're able to show that all three sets of corresponding sides are equal, then we can state that these two triangles are congruent. Another pattern that you're looking for is side, angle, side. The key with side, angle, side is that the angle has to be the included angle. It has to be the angle in the middle of the two sides. So if we look at this picture, so this side JI is congruent to MK and HJ is congruent to ML. I know that because of the tick marks. Notice that the angle is made up of my two colors. That's what we call the included angle. It's in the middle. So if we can show that side, angle, side, if those corresponding parts are congruent, then we can say that the triangle is congruent. Our next shortcut is very similar. Angle, side, angle. However, this time, the side is included. So if I mark my tick marks or my arc marks that are congruent to each other, notice that the side that is congruent to each other is in the middle of those two angles. So if we can find the pattern of angle, side, angle, then we can conclude that the two triangles are congruent. The last one is angle, angle, side. So notice that the side doesn't have to be in the middle. So I have my two sets of corresponding angles. And then the side that is not in the middle is also congruent to each other. If I can show angle, angle, side, then I can say that those two triangles are congruent. So this week, all we're going to be focusing on, we're going to think of it like a puzzle. We want to see if we can find these shortcuts to prove congruency. Some key properties that you're going to need to look for to show two sides are congruent that aren't marked. If they have tick marks, that's easy, it's given. But if they aren't marked, we're going to be looking for the most popular, which is reflexive. So that means it's the same exact side. A midpoint. A midpoint, remember, cuts a segment into two equal parts. So if I know that this is the midpoint of the line, I can conclude that those two sides would be congruent. Or a segment bisector, which is very similar to a midpoint. For angles, the most popular is vertical angle. So it's created by two intersecting lines. The second most popular is alternate interior angles. However, to use that, you need to show that, you have to have parallel lines. And then we can say those two angles are congruent. And finally, an angle bisector cuts an angle into two equal parts. All right, today you're really going to be looking at reflexive and vertical angles. So the worksheet that you're going to be working on to help you to go through these, you're going to highlight all corresponding angles and sides that are congruent with each different color. So you have 3 different colors again. Okay, you can only match the corresponding parts or color the corresponding parts if you have reasoning. So if I look at my first example, I'm going to mark this side with this side. Okay, the reason is given. So I'm going to write in pink so that I'm kind of making that game plan again for when we get to proofs, that these 2 sides are congruent because they are given. Then I'm going to go to my second set of tick marks. 2 tick marks, 2 tick marks. The second reason is also because of given. Then I'm going to go to my third set of tick marks. The third set of sides is congruent because of given. It's also not a bad idea as you go through this, what exactly were you marking? I marked a side, another side, and another side. Okay, notice that I didn't mark any of the angles. I didn't say that this angle was congruent to this angle, even though it's a purple and green combination, because I don't have any proof. I don't have any reasoning. I didn't use any of those properties at the beginning. So I can't mark it unless I have reasoning. And the best reasoning or the easiest reasoning is tick marks or arc marks because it's given. So then I can conclude, they want you to conclude which triangle congruence is shown. Well, these 2 triangles are congruent due to side, side, side. So I'm asking for a lot with each picture. I'm asking you to highlight congruent parts with one another. I'm asking you to state the reason why they are congruent. And then I'm asking you to tell me which triangle congruence shows a statement or shortcut is shown. So I'm going to skip to the last one where they all aren't tick marks, or second to last one. So I'm going to start with my arc marks. So I'm going to use the color purple. Okay, this reason is given, and and this is an angle. My second given are these 2 sides. So I have another given, and that's a side. Unfortunately, there's no more tick marks, there's no more arc marks. So I have to use properties that I know. And today, I told you the 2 most popular properties are going to be reflexive or vertical. So if I go back here, I don't share any sides. This side is different than this side. This side is different than this side. Reflexive line would be like that example to the right. That's a reflexive line. It is shared. But in this example, if I examine my angles, I have a pair of vertical angles. And we know that vertical angles are congruent. So I'm going to mark that my blue angles are vertical angles, which gives me a third angle. Now, just because I wrote it in the order angle, side, angle, doesn't necessarily mean that that's the proper congruence. I have to look at how they are situated on my triangle. So if I look at my triangle, the side is not in the middle, so it's not angle, side, angle. So I have an angle followed by another angle followed by a side. So this is an example of angle, angle, side.